There are 3 dark personality types, and most men are completely blind to which one is ruling them. This ignorance isn't harmless. It's why they're manipulated, discarded, forgotten. But the few who can look in the mirror and see the darkness for what it is, they win. Because power belongs to those who stop pretending they're good and start mastering the shadow that actually drives them. If you don't know which one governs your instincts, your emotions, your ambition, then it's already decided your fate. And the most tragic part, most men think they're strong, but they're just emotionally addicted to admiration. That is the curse of the first type, the narcissist. The narcissist doesn't love himself. He needs to be loved. He needs to be seen, applauded. He walks into a room and immediately begins calculating not power, not opportunity, but attention. Who's looking? Who's not? Who praised him? Who ignored him? And in this desperate theater of validation, he becomes a slave to perception. But he doesn't see it that way. He thinks he's just confident, charismatic, destined for something great. He'll even convince you he's but in reality, he's terrified of one thing: being unseen. The narcissist builds his whole life around admiration, and yet he never feels admired enough. Because beneath all the performance is something rotting, fragile pride. One insult, and he spirals. One rejection, and he plots revenge. The narcissist is not strong. He is starving, and the more he feeds on praise, the more he needs it to survive. You'll see him in every room, loud, curated, slightly too polished. He smiles wide, but scans constantly for signs of disrespect. If you praise him, he shines. If you ignore him, he withers. But if you challenge him, he breaks. You've just witnessed the masks slip. The narcissist doesn't have defenses. He has illusions, and when those illusions crack, he collapses into one of 2 extremes: rage or despair. Neither are controlled, neither are rational. He is an empire built on mirrors, and once the reflection no longer flatters him, he burns the whole room down trying to get it back. This is why many men fail in silence, not because they lacked skill, but because their egos were too fragile to withstand reality. One loss, and they disappear. One bruise, and they retreat into fantasy, because they were never warriors. They were children trapped in adult bodies, craving applause instead of conquest. But make no mistake, the narcissist can still rise. And often he does because he knows how to wear the perfect face. He adapts to what you admire. He becomes what you want to praise. In politics, in entertainment, in leadership, narcissists often rise faster than everyone else. Why? Because they need to. While others debate, the narcissist seduces. While others hesitate, he poses. He becomes a mirror of the public desire, and the crowd, hungry to worship, gives him the crown. But this is the cruel paradox. What lifts him is also what dooms him, because the moment the admiration fades, he self-destructs. Think of the icons who fell apart once the spotlight dimmed. The leaders who couldn't handle criticism. The creators who vanished once they were no longer praised. It wasn't failure that broke them. It was their addiction to being seen as perfect. This is where it becomes dangerous, not just for them, but for everyone around them. Because when the narcissist starts to lose admiration, he doesn't go quietly. He manipulates, guilt trips, and lies. He rewrites history. He demonizes those who stop feeding him praise. In relationships, he becomes controlling. In business, vindictive. He cannot let you move on because your attention is his oxygen. So he will shame you, charm you, or destroy you, anything to remain center stage. And if he can't be worshipped as the hero, he'll play the victim, or worse, the villain. Not out of strategy, but out of desperation. This is not power. This is dependency disguised as dominance. Once you see it, you'll notice it everywhere. The loudest in the room, the most polished, the ones who always need to be special. They're not free. They're dying for applause. And here's the final cruelty. Most men who are ruled by this type never realize it until it's too late. They think they're chasing greatness, when really they're just chasing compliments. They think they're leaders, when really they're addicts for praise. And while they're building a false self for the world to admire, their real self is decaying, noticed, unloved, and eventually forgotten because they spent their entire life trying to be someone else's ideal. Not once did they stop and ask, "Who am I?" When no one's watching, this question haunts them. And if they ever slow down long enough to face it, it breaks them. Because the truth is, the narcissist doesn't want power. He wants to look powerful. And in the end, that illusion becomes his cage. But here's where it gets dangerous. Some narcissists learn to weaponize their charm. They evolve. They study attention like war. They seduce not just to be loved, but to control. When that shift happens, the narcissist is no longer just fragile. He becomes calculated, strategic, a charming manipulator who wears vulnerability like armor. And this is how he begins to transform into something darker. He's evolved past the clumsy hunger for praise. Now the narcissist has learned to control it. No longer a child begging for attention. He's a performer who understands the audience better than they understand themselves. He's refined, selective, weaponized. But make no mistake, the wound is still there. He doesn't seduce because he wants to connect. He seduces because it gives him leverage. Compliments are no longer food, they're currency. He trades them for loyalty, obedience, worship. And in this new form, the narcissist becomes dangerous not just to himself, but to everyone who mistakes his mask for depth. Because once you believe in his illusion, he owns you, and when he owns you, he feeds. Not always publicly, not always obviously, but behind every soft smile and gentle voice, he's extracting something from you: admiration, sympathy, envy, submission, all without lifting a single weapon. Because his real weapon is you. He plays the victim masterfully. He'll confess his flaws, but only the ones that make him seem brave. He'll share his pain, but only in ways that center him as the tragic hero. He will admit failure, but only the kind that makes him appear strong for surviving it. This is how the evolved narcissist traps you, by giving you just enough truth to seem authentic, just enough vulnerability to seem safe, and just enough charisma to seem magnetic. You lower your guard, you trust, you admire, and then slowly, your sense of reality begins to shift. You feel inferior around him, but you can't explain why. You start questioning yourself more. You become addicted to his approval and terrified of his silence. And that's exactly where he wants you: uncertain, impressed, submissive. Because if you ever wake up to what he really is, the spell breaks. But most never do. They stay locked in the orbit of his ego, spinning endlessly around a sun that only shines for itself. They confuse confidence with superiority. They confuse storytelling with honesty. They confuse emotional expression with emotional depth. And they pay the price in silence, wondering why they always feel unseen, unheard, unworthy next to someone who claims to love them. Because the narcissist doesn't build connections. He builds mirrors. And you are only valuable to him when you reflect something he wants to see. The moment you show him a reflection he doesn't like: your independence, your anger, your strength, he punishes you. Sometimes with distance, sometimes with cruelty, sometimes with sudden unexplained withdrawal. And each time he frames it as your fault. Because the evolved narcissist is a master of blame. This is what makes him so difficult to confront. You can't argue with him. He's rehearsed every response. You can't accuse him. He'll turn it around on you. You can't shame him because he'll use your accusation as proof that you're the problem. And if you try to leave, he'll become everything you once loved again, just long enough to pull you back. He doesn't want you. He wants your admiration. He doesn't love you. He loves how you made him feel about himself. And when he no longer needs you, he will discard you gently, poetically, sometimes even with tears, but discard you all the same. Because the narcissist is not here to build with you. He is here to build himself, and you are just another brick in his image. And yet you'll still miss him. That's the real cruelty. Even when you see him clearly, even when you understand the manipulation, even when you finally walk away, something in you will ache. Because the narcissist is an expert in imprinting himself onto your psyche. He'll be the first to say something no one else ever dared to say. He'll be the only one who noticed that one detail you always hid. He'll remember things no one else remembers. And he'll give you a taste of being completely seen before snatching it away. That is the drug, and once you've tasted it, everyone else feels dull. That's what he counts on. Because even if you hate him, if you remember him, he still wins. But the greatest tragedy, the narcissist doesn't even know who he is. For all the masks he wears, for all the identities he crafts, for all the people he mirrors, the core is hollow. There is no stable self, just shifting images, trying to catch a glimpse of something real. He is both master and prisoner of the performance. And eventually, when the crowd is gone, the applause fades and no one is watching, he's left with silence. And it terrifies him because in that silence there is no reflection, just the haunting question: who am I if no one's looking? And he has no answer. So he starts performing again: another audience, another stage, another mirror, always running from the stillness that would force him to see the truth. And now you must ask yourself, does this type live in you? Are your goals truly your own, or are they just bait for applause? Do you act for yourself or for the version of yourself you hope others admire? Do you crave growth or the appearance of growth? Because if you lie to yourself here, you'll never escape the narcissist's cage. You'll spend your life performing, pleasing, posing, and dying inside. But if you answer honestly, something rare happens. You stop acting and you start becoming. But the path to that clarity is brutal. Because once you destroy the illusion, another darker one waits underneath it. Most people never make it past the narcissist phase. Their entire lives are lost in the performance, addicted to admiration, enslaved by their own image. But a rare few evolve. They stop needing to be admired and start needing to win. These men are no longer chasing praise. They're chasing control. And in this cold evolution, the second type is born, the Machiavellian. He doesn't care if you love him. He doesn't care if you fear him. He only cares that you obey him. While the narcissist wants attention, the Machiavellian wants leverage. He studies people like blueprints. He speaks only when it moves the board. He trusts no one because he knows the game is not about being liked. It's about being untouchable. The Machiavellian personality is built on one core belief: people are tools. They can be used, sharpened, broken, replaced. He doesn't hate them. He simply doesn't romanticize them. Emotions are liabilities. Loyalty is negotiable. Kindness is camouflage. And truth. Truth is a weapon to be sheathed or unsheathed depending on what wins. You'll find him behind the scenes. He's the advisor, the strategist, the silent force moving empires. He rarely speaks first. He waits, observes, measures you before you realize you're being studied. And when he finally speaks, it's never a reaction. It's a move calculated, specific, designed to shift power, not feelings. This man doesn't lose his temper because he doesn't value anything enough to get emotional over it. He's already prepared for betrayal, already accounted for failure, already predicted your disloyalty. He plays long games, quiet games, games with no audience. While others announce their goals, he announces nothing. He lets others speak and records every word. He lets others boast while he gathers data. And by the time you realize he's dangerous, he already owns half the board. That is the Machiavellian advantage. You see nothing until it's too late. Because unlike the narcissist who wants attention, the Machiavellian understands this truth. Visibility is vulnerability, and the man who is unseen is the man who survives. You'll feel it when you're in his presence. A strange coldness, but not unkind. He can laugh, joke, even charm, but something's missing. He never gives himself away. His compliments never reveal admiration. His anger never reveals weakness. His stories never reveal strategy. You leave the conversation thinking you've connected, but you haven't. He gave you a version of himself he wanted you to see while learning everything he needed to know about you. And that's the secret. The Machiavellian is always gathering power, not brute force, not charisma, but position. And once he has enough, he doesn't fight. He traps. You find yourself outmaneuvered, outhought, cornered, and you never even saw it coming. What separates the Machiavellian from the naive manipulator is restraint. He doesn't act on impulse. He doesn't use force when deception will do. He doesn't burn bridges unless the fire clears the path. Every betrayal is timed. Every alliance is conditional. Every word is loaded with hidden meaning. This is not chaos. It's precision. And that's what makes him terrifying. He's not cruel. He's efficient. If hurting you moves the board, he'll do it with elegance. If helping you wins loyalty, he'll do it with sincerity. You'll never know which side of him you're facing because he's not on a side. He's playing above the board entirely, watching everyone else scramble while he decides what move ends the game. And yet, even this type is not immune to danger. The Machiavellian may master others, but he risks one fatal weakness, believing he's always the smartest man in the room. Arrogance wrapped in strategy is still arrogance. And once he begins to underestimate, once he believes his traps are infallible, once he trusts in the superiority of his own mind, he slips. Because even a perfect plan, once revealed, becomes a target. And the greatest power is always the power you hide. This is the paradox of the Machiavellian. To win, he must never show his hand. But if he plays too long, too cold, too high above, he forgets what the game was even for. And in that detachment, his empire rots from within. The question now is not whether you know someone like this. It's whether you are becoming him. Have you begun to see people as levers instead of lives? Do you watch more than you speak? Do you feel detached? Surgical? Even in chaos? And more importantly, do you like it? Because if you're evolving from a narcissist into a Machiavellian, you may feel stronger, smarter, even unstoppable. But be careful. This type pays a heavy price. No connection, no peace, no true alliance, only advantage, only survival. And once you've chosen that path, there's no return to innocence, only the next level of darkness. He doesn't trust you. He doesn't trust anyone. And that's what keeps him sharp. The Machiavellian wakes up already playing the game before he checks his phone, before he speaks a word. Every day is a battlefield not of violence, but of positioning. He doesn't need to scream to be feared. He just needs to know what you want. Because the man who knows your desire owns your decisions. And the Machiavellian has perfected this. He studies the people around him like a scientist. He learns their insecurities, their hunger, their guilt, not to heal them, to use them. His relationships are blueprints. His favors are traps. His silence is strategy. And when the time comes to strike, he doesn't raise his voice. He pulls one thread and the whole illusion collapses. This man understands what most men never will. Control is more powerful than affection. Influence is more lasting than intimidation. If the narcissist needs to be adored and the brute needs to be obeyed, the Machiavellian simply needs to be obeyed without resistance. That's what makes him dangerous. You'll think it was your idea to submit. You'll think you trust him because you chose to. But every word you heard, every compliment you received, every story he told was engineered not for your approval, for your compliance. He doesn't need to convince you. He just needs to build the environment where resistance feels exhausting and agreement feels natural. And when you realize you've been led, you'll be too deep in the web to escape. But this isn't about petty manipulation. The Machiavellian doesn't waste time on emotional games. His vision is bigger than attention or revenge. He wants empire control over the entire board, not just one piece. And that's why he often rises. In business, in politics, in war, the cold strategist is always behind the throne, if not seated on it. He calculates not just people, but systems. He finds the weakest hinge in the structure and applies pressure. He doesn't need a throne to rule. He just needs the man on the throne to owe him a favor. What rises in its place is not calculation, but chaos. Coldness turns into crew. And that's the genius. While others chase power directly, he acquires it indirectly through debts, secrets, and silence. He doesn't fight to rule the room. He makes the one who rules the room ask him what to do next. But here's the curse of this type. No one really knows him, and that isolation, while powerful, becomes its own prison. Because once everyone around you is a pawn, no one is ever truly close. You begin to question loyalty even when it's real. You anticipate betrayal even when it's not coming. You become addicted to outsmarting everyone, and paranoid that someone might do it to you. So you never relax. You never trust. You never stop watching. Even in victory there's tension. Even in peace there's planning. Because the Machiavellian has confused mastery with meaning. He's mastered the game but lost the point of playing it. This is where the dark shift begins. Some Machiavellians grow tired of pretending, of performing, of waiting. And in this fatigue, they abandon strategy altogether. What rises in its place is not calculation, but chaos. Coldness turns into cruelty. Precision turns into destruction. The manipulator becomes the destroyer. Eventually, even the Machiavellian gets bored of pulling strings. He wants to feel something real. But real connection is impossible for him now. So he seeks sensation, instead risk pain, power for power's sake. This is how the strategist becomes the third type. The most feared of all. Before that descent, you must ask yourself, are you here already? Are you playing the game so well that you've stopped asking why you started? Are you isolating yourself for protection, or because you no longer believe in anything but control? Have your relationships become transactions? Has your identity become strategy? Because if you're already living in the mind of the Machiavellian, then you know how it ends. Cold victory, silent rooms, no trust, no peace. Just a mind that never stops turning, and a world that never feels safe enough to let it rest. And from here, the next phase isn't higher. It's deeper into something more primal, more ruthless, and far less human. He doesn't need your approval. He doesn't need your loyalty. He doesn't even need your attention. The third type has moved beyond games entirely. The psychopath doesn't plan like the Machiavellian or crave admiration like the narcissist. He acts pure impulse, pure will, pure dominance, no guilt, no shame, no hesitation. While others are stuck calculating risks, he's already in motion, and by the time they process what's happening, it's already over. The psychopath is not concerned with reputation. He isn't weighed down by fear, regret, or self, and that's what makes him deadly. He is the embodiment of detachment, not spiritual, but surgical, a man who feels nothing except the thrill of power when others flinch. You won't recognize him at first. He doesn't always look like chaos. In fact, he's often calm. While others rage or panic, he watches eyes cold, fixed, unreadable. He doesn't justify. He simply moves through problems, people, consequences as if they don't exist. And to him, they don't, because conscience is a weight, emotion is a leash, the past is irrelevant, only the next move matters. That's why he can lie without blinking, hurt without guilt, destroy without pause. It's not personal. It's not even malicious. It's instinct. The predator doesn't hate the prey. He just doesn't care if it bleeds. You'll find him wherever there's chaos, not hiding from it, but walking straight through it. While the narcissist freezes without applause, and the Machiavellian waits for the perfect moment, the psychopath creates the moment. He thrives in fire, in unpredictability, in war, and the more unhinged the world becomes, the more powerful he feels. He doesn't panic when the rules break. He breaks them first. And this gives him an advantage that terrifies weaker men. He is willing to go further, cross lines, ignore laws, silence morality. Because to him, limits are not ethical. They're optional. And most people's restraint is just another weapon for him to exploit. But this is not stupidity. The psychopath is not a brute. He's calculated, focused, and often highly intelligent. He knows what you expect him to feel, and he mimics it flawlessly. He can say the right words, show the right face, even cry if necessary, but it's all performance. Inside, nothing moves, nothing sticks. Because to feel is to be vulnerable. And he removed that part of himself long ago, maybe through trauma, maybe through choice. It doesn't matter. What matters is that now he is ungoverned by conscience. This allows him to do what others can't. Walk into the storm unshaken, and bend it to his will. Not because he's brave, but because he doesn't care if he dies doing it. This is why the psychopath often becomes the king when empires fall. When the old rules no longer protect the weak, when institutions collapse, when fear spreads like wildfire, he rises. Because everyone else is paralyzed by consequences, but he has none. While others negotiate, he takes. While others hesitate, he strikes. And even those who see him clearly often still follow. Not out of love, but out of awe. Because deep down, people admire what they fear, and they fear what they cannot predict. That is the psychopath's gift. You never know if he'll spare you, or smile as he ends you. But there's a cost. The psychopath gains control, but loses humanity. He might win the war, but walk off the battlefield alone. He might build the empire, but sit on the throne in silence because no one trusts him. No one loves him, no one stays. He is a storm that passes through, leaves bodies in its wake, and moves on untouched. His name may echo in history, but no one will grieve him when he's gone. And the truth is, he doesn't care. That's what makes him tragic. He doesn't want to be saved. He doesn't believe in salvation. He only believes in strength and dominance, in the raw, merciless force of will that bends the world to its knees. And once you embrace that mindset, it's almost impossible to come back. Still, many try to wear the mask. They imitate the posture, the coldness, the stare, but pretending to be a psychopath is not the same as being one. Because when real chaos hits, most men flinch, most men beg, most men break. But the true psychopath walks forward unaffected, not because he's fearless, because he has nothing to lose. And the moment you stop fearing consequences, you become capable of anything. The psychopath doesn't flinch because fear requires imagination, and he no longer imagines pain, loss, or consequence. He's moved beyond narrative, beyond guilt, beyond the emotional strings that paralyze most men. This absence of hesitation gives him a terrible advantage: speed. While others analyze, the psychopath acts. While others worry about outcomes, he creates them. Not carefully, not methodically, but with raw, explosive force that destabilizes everything in his path. This is not recklessness. It's freedom, a freedom most men can't comprehend because they're still tethered to shame, memory, and social approval. But the psychopath severed those ties long ago, and in that severance, he became untouchable. But don't mistake his power for success. The psychopath is not a builder. He's not a strategist. He doesn't care for legacy. He doesn't negotiate, nurture, or preserve. He dominates, then moves on. He thrives in disruption, not creation. In conquest, not governance. That's why many of them burn out. Not from defeat, but from boredom. Once there are no more enemies to break, no more lines to cross, no more chaos to feed on, the thrill disappears. And without that thrill, there's nothing. Unlike the Machiavellian who calculates for the long term, or the narcissist who craves significance, the psychopath doesn't look beyond the moment. His life is a string of nows, each one louder, bloodier, more defiant than the last. Still, some of them rise to terrifying heights: CEOs, generals, cult leaders, crime lords. They command not through inspiration, but through force. Not always physical, often psychological. Their gaze alone can freeze a room. Their silence can break a man. Their presence alters gravity because everyone feels it. This is someone who doesn't care about rules, not yours, not society's, not God's. And in a world built on shared delusions, morality, empathy, consequence, the man who steps outside those illusions holds unthinkable power. The power to act without restraint, to decide without remorse, to destroy without blinking. That is the psychopath's kingdom. Cold, absolute, godless. But here is where the delusion of envy begins. Many weak men admire this type. They think strength means being feared, that to be free they must feel nothing, that to win they must become ruthless. But they don't understand the price. The psychopath doesn't choose this path. He is this path. His emptiness is not an asset. It's a condition. And it comes with a quiet torment. Most can't see disconnection. The inability to love, the inability to feel joy, the inability to belong. He may rule the room, but he'll never feel at home in it. He may break every enemy, but he'll never feel peace because there's no peace without attachment. And he's already killed everything in himself that could attach. Even worse, when the psychopath fails, he implodes not with emotion, but with void. He doesn't spiral like the narcissist. He doesn't recalibrate like the Machiavellian. He simply ceases to function because he never learned how to suffer, or how to wait, or how to rebuild. He only knows how to dominate. And when domination fails, nothing is left. No community, no purpose, no identity. Just a cold silence deeper than death, because it's still alive. This is the final cost of the third type. When he wins, he stands alone. When he loses, he vanishes. Either way, the story ends in isolation. And now you must ask yourself one final time, which type rules you? Which mask have you been wearing so long you forgot it was a mask? Have you been chasing praise like the narcissist, believing applause would make you real? Have you been moving pieces like the Machiavellian, convinced that control means safety? Or have you become the psychopath, detached, efficient, untouchable, but empty? Most men are ruled by one, influenced by another, and pretending they're none. But the only path to real power is brutal honesty. Because when you finally admit which dark instinct governs you, you don't become weak, you become aware. And awareness is the beginning of mastery. Not to suppress the dark, but to direct it. Not to pretend you're good, but to become sovereign over your own shadow. That is the rarest power. The man who sees the narcissist in himself and disciplines it. The man who sees the Machiavellian and sharpens it. The man who sees the psychopath and chains it. He is not innocent. He is not soft. He is not safe. But he is awake. And in a world of sleeping men, he is the most dangerous type of all. If you've made it this far, it's because a part of you already knows this truth. You are ruled by a shadow. Whether you admit it or not, psychopath one of them already whispers through your instincts, shapes your choices, determines your fate. Now, tell me in the comments, are you ready to face the mask you've worn so long you forgot it was a mask? Are you willing to master the dark that governs you instead of being consumed by it? If this message touched you, if it made sense, write in the comments, I master my shadow. Let's see how many here are truly ready to turn awareness into power. And don't forget, keep watching the next video. It's important. Much more than you imagine. See you there. Thinking,